Very good. And it's always to act fast in the short term with long-term impact. And we have seen the success of some examples when there is a time framework with group responsible for delivery within limited time, and we saw the success of the loss and damage. So it's always hard to come after the Honorable Minister. But I can agree and disagree with you. On first, on the glass, half full. Well, as a pragmatist coming from a village in Egypt, I'm happy that there is a glass to start with, and then we can fill it together in the right direction. The glass is the loss and damage, and I can really just summarize that was missing. Now we have it. Seeds money there. World Bank president said yesterday that he will have 90 days for that fund to be established with an independent governance. And this, I'll read your report. Thank you so much for sharing it. But this particular fund, having it is bad news in itself. Why? Why everybody's celebrating it? Actually, we should have been in a position today in 2023 going to 24 that we need not to have this fund. We should have been doing better in mitigation, should have been doing better in adaptation, so losses and damages wouldn't really require to have an operation of its own. But this is the reality of our life. The other fund I'd like to mention, the Green Climate Fund. And that had its own celebration, and many thanks to you and many other countries that contributed. Out of the 29 countries of 30, they did well. Replenishment was aimed for 10 billion plus. Now it is around $13 billion. I was sharing that with the Secretary General of the UN. He said, well, these are pledges. I said, well, at my level as a facilitator, my responsibility is to get the pledges, to make sure that these pledges are delivered and not shady ones. This is the responsibility of the SG and the whole system. So, but at least at my level, this is a job done, and we're wrapping it up. The third fund is the one that came from the UE, the host of COP28, 60 billion, emphasizing the role of the private sector, not really waiting for more time until the world is perfect and then they inject money. They are willing to take risk, putting $5 billion as catalyst fund, and that could be a good example. That will not fix the problems of the world because, as we know, the gaps are in the trillions and this is just the billions. And a fourth fund, which is the IMF, not using my capacity there, but basically one of the best examples to the audience in the room, and I encourage you, have been always constructively critical of work, but this one may survive you. This is the RST in partnership with World Bank, IFC, Green Climate Fund, ADB, and many others to support a platform, not just a transaction. It's a platform for Bangladesh for adaptation and mitigation in that order. So macroeconomic stability is being taken seriously, then issues related to long-term impact there, and paving the road for private sector to complement. This is an example, and this is basically reforming by doing. It's not just waiting until a transaction is happening, so this is good news. But what we have now, this is the world. If you are in a developing economy like mine, you are between the IRA and the CBAM. The IRA, great news for the US. If you are an American or investing in America, this is fantastic news. It's good as well to see the two parties agreeing on anything, and that is a good thing. But spillovers, we cannot ignore them. If you are investing in Egypt or even in Europe, because investors would compare risk and return. I have generous subsidy from the US, with low risk, with low cost of capital.
Actually, you get a tax credit, which is immediately accessible.
Exactly. So here, this is the issue. I saw European investors considering US, let alone those who are trying to be attracted to Ghana or to Egypt. So spillovers, this is assuming a kind of a collaborative model that it doesn't exist. That the legislator in one country will say, well, my good news for my home may have negative news for my neighbor. What should I do? Well, you can always say, as my good friends in USAID said, well, you have been critical. I said, no, I praised your work. I wish that we can have the same subsidy. But you say, well, you can be part of the supply chain. You can be part of the investments in technology and R&D, and there are going to be some spillovers on that part. But until that happens, there are some major investors that are considering scaling up or even being there because of this tough competition, including in green hydrogen. CBAM, I see it in different ways. The countries need technical assistance to deal with it. I know that colleagues from ministries of trade and industry are pushing for a clarification from WTO. We know that the WTO will not answer before quite some time because they are evidence-based. No evidence will be there before a couple of years. Countries with partnerships like mine with Europe are saying, well, we are partners, so perhaps exceptions could be considered, but that will not be the solution. The solution could be in decarbonization of the hard-to-abate sectors that are basically the target of CBAM, but we need for that finance, investment, not debt perhaps, technology, R&D, and incentives for transformation. The other thing, you are ahead, especially in the ecosystem of the carbon markets. The EU at large, not just Holland or the Netherlands, were helpful to China. Africa is closer. We can really get some sort of benefit from this taxonomy. And this one of the most controversial areas about integrity, rules and standards. And I was moderating a session yesterday, one of the toughest in terms of the issues related to taxonomy and standards and how to apply them. So IRA, CBAM, carbon markets, and then the final one is debt swaps. This could be an opportunity.
Agreed.
And here we need really to be innovative, not just beyond the traditional swaps that we have seen in few countries, including recently Barbados, for instance. But I see opportunities, including actually in the hard-to-abate sector, that debt swaps could be there as well for help. But we need the scale and the platform, and that would require lots of technical assistance and willingness. And unfortunately, the debt structure today is not like that of the 1990s. The creditors are different, but at least we still have some Paris Club creditors that they could consider that. Until the issues are being fixed when it comes to cost of capital, we need really to be super competitive in our business environment in order to attract the investors. I'm talking we as developing economies, emerging markets, or now being called the global south. So we'll see. We have our eyes on Brazil in two capacities in less than a year. We are having many deliverables by the time we meet in Brazil at the summit. And then, of course, COP30. That will be 2 years of advancement of what is being promised here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Just